What's going on, everybody? It's your guy, Ike Jones, and we are here talking off-season basketball. Is next year going to be a rebuild or a reload? Let's talk about it right here inside the town.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to the War Rapport, LAUbtown podcast. With your boy, Ike Jones.
That's right. You got Ike Jones back inside of LAUbtown, part of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Rapport here, talking a little Auburn basketball. We're going to talk men's and women's basketball. The big question for Auburn fans is whether or not next year is going to be a rebuild, building off of what has been happening over the last couple of seasons. Of course, a Final Four finish for the men there in basketball, or is it going to be a huge reload with so many pieces missing from that Final Four run? We're going to talk about it, but I want you all to make sure that you're sharing this content with somebody. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get in here and have the conversation. If you already have thoughts on this, I know most of y'all don't really care what my thoughts are. I really want to hear what your thoughts are so we can have that discussion here in the chat or in the comment section. But there's a lot of pieces that have to come back together, and this team is going to look drastically different from last year's team in its composition of pieces, not just in names, but just in the size and makeup of the team, as well as the style of play. Very drastically different way that this team is coming together right now. But let's talk about the pieces that we have. Of course, the exodus of a lot of seniors last season, most notably Janai Broome, who, in my opinion, will go down right now in history as the greatest men's basketball player in Auburn basketball history. That is right. Janai Broome is the guy atop the mountain for Auburn men's basketball. His achievements, what he did as far as how far he got the team, in him being the lead, the alpha of that team going into a Final Four, National Player of the Year candidate. The list goes on and on of the achievements of Janai Broome this final season that I think puts him in a different category amongst Auburn men's basketball players. He is going to be missed on the Plains. He is kind of a throwback to a type of player that doesn't really exist in collegiate basketball a lot. But when they do prop up, they're going to be dominant because there just aren't a lot of folks built that way. And that's the back to the basket post players, guys that can really operate from the low post and give other teams problems as post players. But then he, added the step out ability. But anyway, Janai Broome definitely going to be missed on this team. Also, you're going to miss your emotional leader and your locker room leader in a guy in Dylan Cardwell, who was kind of a centerpiece and a focal point, a glue guy to that team. And I just don't know how you replace that guy in a locker room that's going to have so many new faces and so few guys that are holed over from the previous regime. So you're going to have to find a new voice and a new leader and someone who can really speak to that locker room in a real way. That's going to be a key piece missing for next year's team. Looking forward to seeing how Coach Bruce Pearl and company find ways for the coaches to be more assertive in that way and not wait on the locker room guys to get in and really make that happen. That's going to be crucial for next year's team. Then you've got kind of the point of the spear when you're talking about the defense, and that's Denver Jones, who is going to be gone from this team. And he's really a guy who was counted on as being the lockdown guy in the front court, in the back court, to try to disrupt what other teams want to do on the defensive end. He was a guy that was really leading the pack in that way. So really three crucial pieces, and not to mention the exodus of Chad Baker-Mazara in the transfer portal, who was a key piece. Chris Moore, a very big glue guy for that team, no longer going to be there. Right. And I mean, the list goes on and on of guys that are no longer going to be there. Chaney Johnson, right? Like, you guys know the story of the guys that are no longer going to be on this team. Miles Kelly, who had the 1 year transformative for him coming in as a shooter for this team to provide some key abilities to stretch the floor away from what Janai Broome had going on. But coming into this season, the only guy that looks like that was a contributor from last year's team that will be back. You thought you were going to have an opportunity to be able to get some interior presence there from AD, but Darren Scott decided he wanted to hit the transfer portal. And what you have left is Tahad Pettiford, the true freshman last year, who will be a true sophomore going into this season, who's testing the NBA waters as the only person who would be a holdover, and very vocal guy, and likely going to be a lead guard for this team coming into next season if he decides to return. Um, is going to have a lot of responsibilities on this team to try to galvanize a team full of players that are going to be, for the vast majority, older than him. And he's going to be looked at as a leader on this team, as a sophomore, a guy who has all the talent and the ability to go be on an NBA roster. He's going to be looked at as a guy who, guys are going to be looking to not only from an on the court scoring buckets standpoint, but really a vocal leader to try to get everybody lined up. He was ready to step into that role late in the season last year, challenging some of the older guys and just their mentality and mindset, and then also in just on the floor what needs to be happening as far as the tenacity to go out there and do things the right way, as far as how this team wants to be able to finish their season. So it is going to be very interesting to see what type of role Tahad Pettiford plays for this team should he return to the team next season. Again, expecting him to play a lot of lead guard minutes. He played a lot of that last season unexpectedly, with JP Pegues not rounding into form the way that the coaches had anticipated he would coming into Auburn from the transfer portal. So looking forward again to seeing how Tahad Pettiford rounds out coming into a sophomore season with Auburn, potentially having a lot of weight and responsibility for him as a scoring lead guard for Auburn going into this season. As far as additions to this team, I think Coach Pearl has done a tremendous job, he and his staff, of putting a lot of talented pieces together. The question is whether or not those pieces fit into a cohesive unit that is going to round out into a team that can go out there and win basketball games in a way that will progress them through the tournament, right? We know that guard play is going to be super critical to execution in tournament time. And the guards right now are looking like a lot of inexperience and a lot of uncertainty, if we're being honest. Talent, unquestioned, but a lot of inexperience and a lot of uncertainty. When you look at returning guys who are going to be the smaller guards, of course, we already talked about Tahad Pettiford, but you're going to have the guard Caden Magwood, who's going to be coming in, true freshman, super talented young man. But is he really ready for the bright lights? And is he going to be able to withstand the rigors and the physicality of an SEC conference schedule that's going to be coming upon him later in the season? Can he finish down the stretch in a strong way? I have no doubt early in the non-con he's going to be able to go out there because, again, supremely talented young man. But, it's yet to be seen whether or not the rigors of a season are going to allow him to flourish, or they're going to relegate him to trying to figure it out. But I am excited about Caden Magwood. He is an absolute bucket out there. So looking forward to seeing what he provides in his freshman campaign for Auburn. And because of the lack of smaller ball handling guards, he may be called on to go out there and produce a little bit more than what was originally anticipated with him coming in to this season. Then you've got the freshman out there and Simon Walker, who, honestly, when I looked at this freshman class, the three freshman signees, he was a guy who I thought was, immediately chalked up in my mind. He's going to redshirt. He's not going to play very many games. But with the number of guards that are available for Auburn at the present time, as of this recording, Simon Walker may be playing significant minutes. When I say significant, I don't mean he's going to play 15 minutes a game, but he may be called on to play 5-6 minutes and be asked to go out there and do some things this season as a freshman. Now, again, supremely talented, but whether or not he's ready for the physicality and the athleticism of the of this caliber of player, right? Playing in the state of Alabama, coming out of high school, I don't know how much he saw the type of athletes that he's going to see. He is, again, that is not a shot at his athleticism. I'm talking about night in and night out being able to compete at this level. He's got some more size on him, which will allow for some more length on him, which will allow him to, I think, to be able to compete a little bit more physically. I think he's more physically ready to go out there and do that. But he just doesn't jump off the screen as far as athleticism is concerned. But I think he's going to be asked to contribute this season. So I am also curious to see what the role for Simon Walker is going to be coming into his freshman campaign, and really how much this coaching staff is going to ask him to do coming into the season. Next up, and I'm kind of going in height order here, not necessarily experience or anything like that, but Kevin Overton is the next guy that's going to we're going to talk about. He is going to be the transfer over from Texas Tech. He's a guy who didn't really play a ton of minutes for Texas Tech, um, but he was a guy who, when you look at the tape on him, fits the mold of what you want as a defensive, gritty player for your backcourt. He's going to be an off guard that's going to be able to go out there and play against the wing players for the other teams and be physical and go and get rebounds. He fits the mold of a rebounding guard for this team that can get out in transition. He can step out and shoot the three a little bit. He's not like a sniper like Miles Kelly, but he is going to provide you a lot of ability to guard at the wing spot. It sounds like I'm talking about food, but as a wing for Auburn, he's going to be able to guard out there and really be able to get up and down the floor. And that's really going to be the theme for this team is disruption and moving with pace. I think you're going to see a lot more pace this season from this Auburn team that's going to be ready to get out there and run a little bit. And they've got guys that can go and do that. Kevin Overton fits the mold of that kind of guy for Auburn in this season. Then you talk about another freshman, the third freshman from this class, Sebastian Williams Adams, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be kind of Chaney Johnson-esque, not quite as physically freaky as a Chaney Johnson, but definitely has some good physical tools. Kind of an undersized power forward, small forward type of guy, but plays with some physicality, can get up and down the floor, really good in the mid-range. And so they're going to be asking him to play a little bit of that 3/4 spot, really. So more of the 4, probably asking to bulk up a little bit right now. Looking at my notes here, 225. So probably going to ask him to get a little bit stronger so he can play a little more post for Auburn because he functions better in that mid-range. But he's going to be a guy that's going to be counted on, I think, a little bit more than anticipated as well. He and Simon Walker, both guys who I did not think would be playing a lot of minutes. But as this roster is composed right now and the way that Coach Pearl really wants to get into an 8, 9, maybe even 10-man rotation, you're going to have to get those guys in there and play a little bit. Now, it's not too late for them to go and get some more guys in the transfer portal. In fact, by the time I post this, there might be another signing happening for Auburn. We don't know. But as it sits right now, I do anticipate he's going to need to play a little bit his freshman season, and he does have the physical tools to be able to do it. But how is that going to translate over? Again, not super familiar with the program that he came with from high school. I don't follow high school basketball enough to be able to speak well about what he came from as a program is concerned and the type of athletes that he was seeing. But is he going to be able to compete with the types of SEC athletes that he's going to see week in and week out? We will see how that pans out for him, because again, 6'7" is a good size, but not super tall. If you're asking him to play a little power forward, he's going to be a little shorter than some of the power forwards that are going to be playing in this league. If you're asking him to play at a small forward or an off guard, I don't know that he really has the foot speed to be able to do that on a consistent basis. Yet to be seen. Again, I don't know, not saying he doesn't, but hopefully we'll get to see that fairly early in his career, kind of how he rounds into form. Looking forward to seeing what the summer program looks like and how that team rounds into shape as practices start to begin, and seeing where those guys fit into the mold of those things. Again, you could see a little bit more small ball potentially being played from this Auburn team this year that wants to get up and down the floor a little bit more than they did last year, as they had the centerpiece of Janai Broome, who was going to slow the pace down and get the ball into the post a little bit more in that team. Next up, you got an absolute bucket. You have an absolute bucket in the JUCO transfer in Abdul Bashir. Auburn fans, of course, will remember Abdi Bashir, his brother, who was on the Monmouth team that Auburn played early in the season last year in the non-con. And those guys are twin brothers, so they are built alike. Right now, Abdul is a little bit bigger as far as physically weight-wise. He's a little bit bigger than his brother is, so a little, in my opinion, more ready for the SEC from a physicality standpoint, but can absolutely fill it up from all three levels. Right, he is an outside shooter with a deadly precision off the catch and off the bounce. He can get into his mid-range game really smooth in getting to that, and he can get all the way to the rim at 6'7". So he's going to provide you a lot of the offensive punch that you were getting from a guy like Chad Baker-Mazara last year as far as his ability to score from all levels. Not quite the playmaker that Chad Baker-Mazara is, and I have not seen anything from him defensively that would make him really the all-around player that Chad is. But from a scoring standpoint, he absolutely, I think he might be a better overall scorer than Chad is, just because he's a guy. I mean, not that Chad can't go off for 40, but Abdul absolutely can. Right. Like, he's a guy who on any given night can drop 40 out there just because he has such an ability to shoot the ball and get hot from perimeter. He can shoot it from the mid range. He's a good free throw shooter. Like, he does all the things necessary. And then he has the length to be able to, as a guard like player, get to the rim and be able to finish amongst the trees. So he is going to be an absolute bucket. I expect him to be a focal point offensively for Auburn, which is going to be, again, an abstraction from what they've done the last few years, as the focal point offensively has been in the post with Janai Broome over the last 3 seasons. There's not really that post presence for Auburn this year that you're going to want to just give the ball to and get out of the way. But having said that, the next guy on this list absolutely can operate from the post. Now, he is more of a face-up post player, so he'll catch the ball back to the basket, turn and face up. But you have the big guard in Keshawn Hall, who is electric. When I go and put on the film for him, you see a guy who moves really fluidly. He's a 6'7", 6'8" kind of guy. He lost a lot of weight throughout his collegiate career, but still has some of that big body mentality in his toughness and his physicality on the interior. A really good offensive threat. Again, a 3-level scorer. Not as good a 3-point shooter, but definitely a solid 3-point shooter. When I say not as good as Abdul Bashir is, but solid 3-point shooter, and can absolutely fill it up from the mid-range, and he can get inside and plays with aggression in the post as well. So someone who can be another kind of go-to player offensively for Auburn. And then next up, you have a guy in Elijah Freeman who is 6'8". He's got all of the physical tools that you want. He can, he can rise and throw it down. He can operate from outside, another kind of big guard guy, but because he's 6'8", he can play in the post a little bit as well. He's going to be kind of a Swiss Army knife for this team to be able to play multiple positions. He's got the athleticism to be able to move his feet on the exterior. He's going to be a guy who's going to be, I think, one of the more unheralded signings because of just the physical tools he has. Maybe a little bit more developmental because of where he's coming from and hasn't played at this level, man. But if it clicks for this young man with the physical tools that he has, able to step out and shoot the 3, he's going to be an awesome and dynamic player for this Auburn basketball team. Next up, you've got Keshawn Murphy, the other Keshawn that came over, 6'10" from Mississippi State. No questions here about whether or not he's ready for the rigors of SEC play. He played 3 seasons at Mississippi State. He played his most minutes ever in this last season, as you saw him step into a bigger role with that team, and he flourished in that role. He's a guy who can go out there and he can do all the things necessary as far as rebounding, as far as being able to score on the interior. Not really a step out and shoot the 3 guy, but has a decent, it doesn't look ugly when he lets it go, but doesn't shoot a high percentage out there from 3, but he can score around the basket. He's not as dynamic as Janai Broome, or dominant, I wouldn't say. He's definitely dynamic, not as dominant as Janai Broome on the interior, but he has that ability to be able to score. Has a nice little 5-foot floater game that he likes to deploy, even on the bounce, coming in there a lot like, not as smooth looking as what Jay Will used to do when he would get into that mid-range left-hand float game. But Keshawn Murphy has a nice little float game from around 5 feet that he can deploy. He finishes around the rim pretty well, like what I saw from him last year at Mississippi State. In fact, he was giving Auburn the blues in that game versus Mississippi. I was like, I would love to see this dude transfer to Auburn next year, because I just liked his ability to be able to score, turn and face up, put the ball on the floor. All of those things. Did a really good job in that game, rebounding wise, tenacious towards the basketball. That's another thing I hadn't mentioned about what I liked about Keshawn Hall and his tenacity for going out after boards. But I love the rebounding tenacity that you get from Keshawn Murphy. So both of the Keshawns being able to play on the interior and give you some good rebounding prowess. I like that from them. And then you get a little bit of shot blocking with Murphy as well. Again, a 6'10" guy who protects the rim really well, uses his verticality really well. So like what I saw from him. Last but not least, again, going in order of height, you've got Emeka Oporum coming over from JUCO and for D2, actually, I think. But he's a guy who is of course, 7 feet tall, absolutely a rim protector. He is going to be in the mold of a Walker Kessler kind of player. That is his primary role is going to be a rim runner and a shot blocker. They're not going to just give him the ball on the post and ask him to go to work. But he is a guy who finishes around the rim well. He's got good soft touch around the rim. And he is absolutely a rim protector, rebounder type of guy. I mentioned Walker Kessler, and I'm hoping, Walker Kessler, once he has an opportunity during the summer, gets an opportunity to come in and work with this young man and help him with some of his timing stuff on the defensive end. If he can really grasp the idea of what Walker Kessler was able to put together as a rim protector, you will have a type of team that can be dynamic in the way that team was, as far as the pick and roll situations and having those rim running guys. In fact, the offensive philosophy is going to mirror a little bit more of that Jabari Smith Walker Kessler year than it has been the Janai Broome last 3 seasons, and wanting to get up and down the floor, push the pace a little bit more. You've got more versatile wings / bigs out there, guys that are 6'7", 6'8", that can play multiple positions. And of course, they're going to want to switch everything. You got guys that can switch the actions all over the place because you're not really losing any height, except for, you, of course, your 2 guards there with Tahad Pettiford and Caden Magwood. Like, you're going to lose some height there, but you got guys that are willing to switch all the actions out there. The only thing that I worry about with this team right now is there really isn't a true kind of gritty point guard, non-scoring, just facilitator on this team. And the reason why I think that that's more necessary here, and I would like for that guy to be in the mold of Denver Jones' height, right? More of a 6'2" to 6'4" guy, is because the style of basketball I think that's going to be played on this team, it's going to require somebody, when everything is frantic, someone who can just quiet it down for a minute. When we get into the half court set, let's get into a good shot, good set, but doesn't need to be a person that's going to be looking to score in that scenario. They're going to be a pass first, score if needed kind of guy. And I think that's the only thing that I'm missing on this roster. Somebody 6'2" to 6'4" that's really just a floor general that can kind of get things settled for you when you need a bucket. The only problem with that is trying to find guys like that means that you're likely going to have to give them a starting spot. And I don't know where the starting spot is available. If I were picking a starting 5 for this team right now, I'd be looking at Tahad Pettiford, probably Bashir, depending on what it happens at that 3 spot, you could see him going either Freeman, Hall, or Overton at that spot. Likely going to be Hall, but you could see Pettiford, Bashir, Hall. And then at your 4-5, right now, you'd probably go Murphy and Oporum just from a height standpoint. But I could also see Oporum coming off of the bench, and you would have Murphy at your 5, and then you would slide, Hall or Elijah Freeman in at your 4 spot there. Again, a little undersized in terms of height there from that 4 spot. So if you're looking to go more Twin Towers look like you were last year, even though you're not going to be running a lot of that post action, more rim run action, I think you would go with Murphy and Oporum. But again, that's a team I think that's built to get up and down the floor. You're going to see a lot more high ball screen action, a lot more high-low action from the post stuff, because, if you have Oporum there, he's not going to be a guy you want to operate too much out top, but he is somebody who will play primarily on the block like Dylan Cardwell was, like you were when you had Walker Kessler there. And he'd have a facilitating big from the high post to be able to operate there with him. So, again, an exciting brand of basketball potentially being played there. Do you have knockdown outside shooters? You got guys who can shoot threes, but you don't really have the Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, swing it to them, knock down 3-point makers, even Chad Baker-Mazar, guys that you anticipate are going to be 40% or above from 3 on the season. So you're going to need some spacers out there in order to play the liberal way that they want to in this team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the things develop with guys like Hall out there on the floor. How can he be consistent with his 3-point shot? He's a good 3-point shooter. How consistent can he be with the ball swinging to him, knocked down there in the corner? Kevin Overton, another guy, another left-handed player who can shoot open threes when it's swung to him, knocked down. Can he be a guy that can shoot 35% or above? I already talked about Bashir, how I think he definitely can be somebody like that for this team. Can Freeman be a consistent 3-point shooter and really stretch the floor when he's out there? Sebastian Williams Adams is a guy who can shoot threes, probably not somebody who you're going to want to shoot threes a lot. Simon Walker, Caden Magwood, Tahad Pettiford, all guys that can shoot threes. So you have the ability to shoot threes really until you get to Keshawn Murphy and Opurum on that squad. Those are guys you wouldn't want to, but can shoot threes for the most part, but how consistent and how well can they stretch the floor and be able to make teams respect that? So it allows for your downhill drivers, which you have quite a few of those, your mid-range shooters and your lob guys to be able to have operation space out there with the floor stretched a little bit. That's the question, I think, for this team. And then the other big question before we shift gears and talk a little bit of women's basketball is defensively. You've got some rim protection out there with Murphy and Opurum, but do you have the gritty guard play? And then can guys like Murphy and Opurum switch, or are you going to have to play more drop coverage this year rather than the hard switches that you were doing with Dylan Cardwell and Janai Broom, who are very, very willing to go out there and play late clock perimeter defense against guards out there? Can those guys function in that way so that you have the ability to get those shot clock violations, those late stops in games, because you're able to switch everything and not have to really worry about where the action is going? We're just going to switch everything and make sure that we're talking defensively. So because there's so many guys that are so new and so many people, the defense is something that you have to wonder, how quickly can they gel in their ability to do that sort of thing, and how quickly are they going to be able to really go out there and be dictating things on the defensive end so that they can get into the transition game that I think that they want to play with this squad this season. Definitely want to hear you all's comments about all of those things. Again, we're going to talk a little women's basketball. Make sure you are sharing this content with somebody. Go ahead and like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for everybody who continues to support what we got going on with the Rapport. But let's talk a little women's basketball here on LAUbtown. Of course, for those of you who don't know, it is the Larry Vickers regime now taking over with Auburn Basketball. He is the new head women's basketball coach coming over from Norfolk State. And I just want to make sure I'm pulling up my notes here to talk about his staff before I get into the roster. The additions to the staff there: Chief of Staff Candace Jackson, Assistant Coach Carolyn McCombs, who was a previously at Auburn. You got Rodney Hill coming over, and Director of Ops, AK Prestige, also previously at Auburn, there on the staff so far for Coach LV. And the brand of basketball that he brings over from Norfolk State is going to be a concentration on the defensive end, and again, a high-paced, high-tempo kind of offense. They want to score in transition and really limit teams on the offensive end, and then get out in transition and score quickly on their offensive side. And I think that he's put together a roster that's going to be able to mirror that kind of thing. Again, it's going to be about how quickly they can gel. Now, you had a really good defensive team under Coach Johnny Harris, but Johnny Harris was really more of a man principle defense, and Coach LV plays a lot more zone. Now, not that they won't go and play man, but the principles of what he does is going to be a lot of pressing zone defense to try to create those backcourt turnovers and force teams into backcourt violations by making it difficult for them to advance the ball, play really aggressive zone defense in the half court. So in order to do that, you've got to have some athletic wings out there. And I think that he's got some out there. So let's talk a little bit about this roster. Similarly with the guys, I'm going to start from the smallest player on the court. We'll go to the tallest player out there. And we'll start it off with Sanaya Richardson, who is the freshman originally committed to SMU, flipped that commitment over to LV and the Auburn Tigers recently. And she is 5'5" freshman guard. Watched a little bit of her tape, and, of course, this is highlight tape, but she is a knockdown shooter. She can step out off the dribble and off the catch and really shoot. Got a good handle, really tenacious and heady basketball player. She's out there really wanting to get up and down the floor and push the pace. And again, that's something that Coach LV really wants to be able to do. So I like the point guard skills from her. 5'5", of course, she's going to be small, but she's got a tenacious nature to her, like what I saw from Sanaya Richardson when looking at the film on her. Next up, you got Maya Petticourt, who is going to be coming over the transfer from Rutgers. Originally, coming out of high school, was at Texas A&M. So this is going to be a return for Maya to the SEC. But she is someone who is at 5'9", a good defensive player on the exterior. But what I liked most about her really was her ability to knock down the outside shot. She's a shooter. She's somebody who can step in and really knock down 3-pointers. That's something that this Auburn team, I already talked about that with Sanaya Richardson. Now we've only 2 people into the roster, and I've already talked about 2 people who can hit the outside shot. That's something that Auburn was sorely lacking on the team last season. Just did not have quality outside shooting consistently on that team. You were hoping to get that from Talia Scott, who has exited the transfer portal now at Baylor. You were hoping to, as well, at Baylor, get that from Yuting Donk. When she came over, she was able to provide that. She's not going to be with the team anymore. And then outside of that, it was sporadic with other young ladies who were able to shoot it, but just not able to do it consistently. I think you can get some consistent 3-point shooting from both of those 2 young ladies. If Sanaya Richardson's able to come in and play at the SEC level immediately, she's going to provide a spark and an ability to stretch the floor. And that way, you're going to get that from Maya Petticourt as well. Ariel Jackson is the next one that I have here on my list. And she is someone who is not really the 3-point shooting type. She is more so kind of a tenacious downhill driver and really going to be helpful on the defensive side for this team. I think that she is someone who has the ability to really be disruptive, and I am looking forward to seeing what she brings. Right now, she is probably going to be your lead guard, right? Somebody who's going to start playing immediately at the point guard position, bringing you. She is a senior, so she's had a lot of experience, and she's going to be able to give you some solidified minutes there as a lead guard for Auburn coming up next season. She at 5'9" as well, a little bit more height also than Sanaya Richardson. Again, not the shooter that Richardson is, but definitely has the ability to run the club. Coming back to Auburn, exiting the transfer portal from Texas A&M is Caitlin Duhan. Duhan was one of my favorite players in her Auburn tenure. Glad to see her back in the orange and blue. Looking forward to her senior season at 5'10", as another guard that really has what you want to run this type of system that Coach LV is going to employ for Auburn, which is somebody who's going to get out in the passing lanes, be very tough-minded defensively, crash the boards, really wants to run the floor because she has a lot of speed. When she's in the open floor, she absolutely is a blur out there. So she fits really well into what Coach LV wants to do. She can step out and shoot the 3. She's not like a great 3-point shooter, but she has worked a lot on her outside shot, and you saw that progress in last season before she exited the team last year, and how well she was able to step out into the mid-range and from 3 to be able to stretch the floor a little bit. Very glad to see her back on this team coming into next season. She's going to provide some senior leadership for this team. She's always been a very vocal kind of rah-rah person on the sidelines. She's going to be good for team morale. She's able to keep that energy the way that she has been in the first couple of years at Auburn. Glad to see Caitlin Duhan back as an Auburn Tiger. Next up, you've got the true freshman Harrison Koulibaly, who was originally committed to Georgia. Now, Georgia had put together some really solid freshman classes there, some McDonald's All-American 5 stars type of players out there. And Koulibaly was a part of that coming up class for 25, but flipped that commitment late to Coach LV and the Auburn Tigers. And she's someone who, again, gets up and down the floor. Didn't see a lot of outside shooting from her in the few clips that I was able to catch of her online, but I like her ability to finish around the rim. I like the athleticism that she showed, the ball handling that she showed. She's coming in at 5'10" as well. She's going to be another wing player off guard for Auburn in this offense. And again, she's somebody who I think fits in well with an up and down the floor style team that wants to get out and transition, can be in the passing lanes and play really well against some of the guards that are going to be out there from an athleticism standpoint. Like what I saw from her a little bit The question again for her is outside shooting. Not really sure where she's going to be in that, but she can finish there inside. So looking forward to seeing her freshman campaign there for the Auburn Tigers. Next up, you have Jemiah Harris, who is a transfer from Texas State, a rising junior, 5'11", and she is, the word that I heard when people were talking about her and her style of play is gritty. Like, she is just tough-minded. And I watched a little bit of film on her as well, attacking the basket, not shying away from contact. She can step out and shoot it a little bit. I wouldn't call her a knockdown three-point shooter, but she can shoot the three a little bit. Pretty good ball handler. She was asked to bring the ball up the floor quite a bit for that Texas State team, and did that with no problem. So she's going to be someone else who can kind of, I wouldn't say she's an offensive initiator, but she is an additional ball handler. And again, that's something I think that Auburn lacked last year, was people who you could reliably just give the ball to and say, all right, they're pressing. We've got multiple people who can handle the ball on the open floor to bring the ball up to break this press. Now, you're not going to want to dribble through the press, but still, you don't feel uncomfortable with that person catching the ball in the press and putting the ball on the floor. She's going to give you another guard that's able to do that. But again, tough-minded, going there amongst the trees, rebounding, has no problem with that, with the physicality. Looking forward to seeing what Jemiah Harris does in her first season as an Auburn Tiger, again, as a rising junior. Also returning back to the Auburn Tigers from the transfer portal, one of two players we already talked about, Caitlin Duhan, is Soraya Daniels. Soraya Daniels was somebody who I thought had some really good freshman campaign moments. She was, SEC Freshman of the Week a couple of times out there. She is tough-minded again, another good rebounding, another good defensive wing forwards guard slash type player for Auburn that can come out there, can stretch the floor a little bit, not a knockdown three-point shooter, but definitely has the ability to shoot the three. You have to respect her when she's out there, can finish in the mid-range, probably needs to work a little bit more on her handle and her ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, but she can finish inside. Love what she brings from a toughness standpoint, rebounding standpoint, defensive standpoint. And I think that the thing that I love the most about all of these young ladies that have brought in, Coach LV definitely went and tried to look for tough-minded defensive players. So I'm looking forward to the camaraderie that they build over the next few months, and how if they can really figure out how to play his style of defense, because really early days with Coach Harris, that was the big thing. Could she find young ladies that would buy into the style of gritty defensive play that was going to be necessary to really make them a good team? And when you saw them make their run into the NCAA tournament, she had finally found a team that was able to do that more consistently. Can Coach LV find that in these young ladies? I think he started off really good with some good athletes. Can they come together and figure out how to play cohesively as a unit defensively? If they can make some big noise out there. The most recent addition to this team is Quinera. I'm going to make sure I think I said that correctly, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Montague. But Quinera Montague, she is a transfer over from Mississippi State, rising junior, 6'5", going to provide some much needed size to this team, right? She's one of two players that are over 6 feet tall, and the only player over 6 feet tall that has any real experience playing at this level. She's a Mississippi State person, transferred over from Mississippi State in the offseason, really just recently made her commitment to the Auburn Tigers. And she provides not only just length, but she can step out and shoot it a little bit, right? So she's not necessarily a three-point shooter, but she can stretch the floor, hit you some mid-range stuff out there, can put the ball on the floor a little bit. And Coach LV really likes bigs that are able to step away from the basket and score in the mid-range, maybe even step out and shoot threes. That's something that he really likes for his bigs to be able to do. She fits the mold of that. Now, she is coming off of an injury, so how quickly she rehabs that and gets ready to be able to play for the season, that's yet to be seen. But she absolutely, when looking at her tape, has the ability to put the ball on the floor, step away from the basket, finish inside. She's tough-minded. She's got the size to be able to rebound, even gives you some shot blocking presence out there. So I like the athleticism and the dual nature of her game out there. And I think that she is, if she's going to be healthy, going to be the starting center for Auburn next season, looking at how this roster is composed. Last player here is Arik Angui, the transfer over from UCF, 6'9". Now, I just said Montague is likely going to be the starting center. That's because Ongui, though she has the size, does not really have the basketball skill just yet. She's more of a project out there. She has not been playing basketball for a long time, but of course, her length, her size is going to provide a lot of intimidation on the interior. How quickly she comes along during the offseason is going to determine how many minutes she's going to really be able to provide and how healthy Montague is starting the season. So, Ongui is going to provide plenty of size for this Auburn roster to be able to play on the defensive end. And that's the thing that I think she's going to provide the most for you is her ability to just be a presence on the interior, shot blocking, shot intimidation, and rebounding. Not going to be called upon a lot from a scoring standpoint, but she is somebody who, just by sheer virtue of being extremely tall, could be able to finish around the rim. She actually has a fairly decent touch when she's in there, but doesn't have a lot of big man moves, right? Like she's not like a drop step monster or anything like that. She's going to finish with length. And so, but she does use her length well in the little bit that I saw her play. But that's going to be a developmental piece for this team for sure. So, again, a lot of more wing players, a lot more guards on this team, which is indicative of the style of basketball that they want to be able to play. They want to get up and down the floor, and they want to be able to play with pace and with speed. How well they embrace that zone concept and the ability to play some switching stuff on the defensive end and really be disruptive and get out in transition, I think is going to be a big portion of how successful this team is, because in the half court, though they have some athletic folks, I'm interested to see kind of what sort of offensive game plan the coach puts together with this collection of players that he has out here. So looking forward to the inaugural season of Coach Larry Vickers in the Auburn Tigers locker room and out there on the floor. So that's it, man. That's all I got for you guys. Appreciate y'all for stopping in with me. Definitely want to hear your thoughts on all these things dealing with the Auburn basketball programs. Make sure you like this video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Got so much more great content coming for you. Even got some film breakdown on both men and women's basketball coming for you guys. Green Name Gang, get yourself active so you can get there to that film review. I'm out of here. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle, peace.